Hello and welcome to another Election Lizard video. First, I'd like to start by thanking all the people that supported the start of this channel and watched and shared my first video. I know I haven't posted a video in a while, but I want you guys to know that I really am passionate about this subject and this channel. Now, before we start filling the map with red and blue, I'd like to briefly discuss Kamala Harris's selection as Biden's running mate. Those of you who watched my last video on the subject will remember that I did not think Harris was the best choice available for Biden. That would have been Susan Rice. However, I also noted that Harris was certainly a top contender and an overall well-qualified traditional VP pick, so I was not surprised by her selection. It remains to be seen what impact, if any, she has on Biden's chances, but overall, I think it will neither help or harm Biden's campaign in any huge way. And I still stand by my prediction that Susan Rice will still play a part of Biden administration if he is to win. Well, without further ado, let's begin my first election prediction video. Hey guys, so very late in the editing stage, I realized that I made a pretty big mistake on the map. So basically, throughout the video, you'll see that I have Nevada filled in red, as in Trump gets those electoral votes. Um, However, I meant to have that blue. So just throughout the video, keep in mind that Nevada is supposed to be blue. It is supposed to go to Joe Biden. It's just I made a mistake and I didn't notice until very late in the editing stage. It doesn't really affect the outcome too much or the analysis, but I just wanted to let you guys know. First, I will mention I based this map on the 270 to win consensus map with some adjustments based on the 5/38/2020 election forecast. I use these two sources because A, it tells me what the safer states are at this point in the election, so there is little discussion needed for those states, and B, because I have found that 538's methods of using statistics to create averages, models, and projections to be the most holistic. Using 538's forecast, I defined the battleground states as being those where the projected winner was favored to win 50 to 75% of the projected outcomes in that state. This is a relatively broad definition for a battleground state, but it gives me a chance to talk about some states that may not seem competitive currently, but could be as we get closer to November. Please note that both the consensus map and 538's forecast are updated on a regular basis, so the level of safety of a state might be different by the time you watch this video. Second, the way I fill in these states is based on my own analysis, 538's election forecast, and 538's current polling averages. The reason why I prefer 538's polling averages to others, such as the Real Clear Politics RCP averages, is that 538 accounts for things such as pollster reputability, sample size, and makeup, and pollsters' sponsors when computing the average, whereas the RCP average is just a simple average of recent polls. Now that I'm done explaining some of my methods, let's begin coloring these states. Let's start out with New Hampshire. Now, New Hampshire has not voted for a Republican since the 2000 election, but it is certainly a state that Republicans can win again someday. In fact, given the polling at the time, if the election had been held 4 months ago, Trump could have realistically won the state. However, over the past few months, Trump's standing in the state has declined by 3 points and Biden's has improved by 5 points. As a result, I will add New Hampshire's 4 electoral votes to the Democratic column. Now let's talk about Wisconsin. Wisconsin was obviously one of the states that Trump surprisingly won in 2016. Wisconsin had not voted for a Republican candidate since Reagan's landslide election in 1984, so people had reason to be surprised. The reason why Trump won the state is subject to debate, but I believe that there are two factors that complemented each other. First, Hillary and the Democratic establishment took Rust Belt blue-collar workers at traditional Democratic base for granted in 2016 and did not put much effort into making them part of their coalition. Second, Trump's calls for protectionism and focus on appealing to blue-collar and less educated Americans resonated throughout the Rust Belt and motivated them to turn out for Trump in 2016. Ever since 2016, both parties have been expanding their efforts to win Wisconsin in 2020, and for a while it looked like it would be another close race. However, like New Hampshire, Trump's standing has slowly declined while Biden has risen to the point that it is currently outside the margin of error for Trump to win. So Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes will also go to the Democrats. Now, let's move on to Iowa. Iowa is a very purple state that loves to switch back and forth between Democrats and Republicans in all their elections for federal offices. Trump won it in 2016 after Obama won it in 2012, in part because of Trump's appeal to Midwestern white voters that I previously mentioned. While polling has gotten closer in recent months, Trump still appears to have a lead in Iowa because of the incumbency advantage and the fact that pollsters in many states undersample Republicans. I will give Iowa 6 electoral votes to Trump. However, Biden is not far behind, so it will likely be a close result regardless of who wins. Next, let's move on to one of the more surprising 2020 battlegrounds, the state of Georgia. Given the high rate of African Americans in the state, who are a solid Democratic voting bloc, as well as the continuing growth of the Atlanta metro area accompanied by Trump's decline in popularity with suburban voters, particularly suburban women, the increasing competitiveness in the state may have reached a point where Democrats may actually have a chance at winning the state. While I think that day will come, for now I think the state will stick with Trump. The reasons are that even when Trump's popularity has steadily declined nationally, his numbers in Georgia have remained relatively steady, and he is currently ahead of Biden in the average, though it's a thin margin. That and the fact that Georgia elected a Republican governor in 2018, despite the fact that 2018 was a blue wave year. Of course, there is a lot of debate regarding the 2018 election for governor, but I will not get into that in this video. For now, Georgia's 16 electoral votes will be red. Sticking with surprising battleground states, let's move on to Texas. Texas has not voted for the Democratic nominee since Jimmy Carter won the state in 1976, so it has long been thought of as a Republican bastion. However, demographic changes in the state as well as Trump hemorrhaging support among suburban voters has resulted in unexpectedly tight contests in the state recently. Most notably, the Democrat Beto O'Rourke came very close to unseating Republican Ted Cruz in the 2018 Senate election. Ever since 2018, Democrats and the media have hyped up the possibility that Texas could go blue in 2020. Though the polling does show a close race, much closer than past elections in fact, the polling still shows Trump ahead of Biden. As such, Texas will stay red for now. So it's 38 electoral votes for Trump. The next state I'll fill in is Ohio. Now, Ohio is what is known as a bellwether state, which means that whoever wins Ohio normally wins the election. In fact, the last time Ohio did not predict the winner of the election was in 1960, when Nixon won the state but lost the election to Kennedy. And currently, it has the longest perfect streak out of all the bellwether states. In 2016, Trump won Ohio with an 8-point margin, but current polling suggests that it could be a tighter contest in 2020. However, more recent polls have seen Trump's standing improve. Because of this, and Trump's incumbency advantage, I will give Ohio's 18 electoral votes to Trump. However, I will note that 2020 might very well be the year Ohio's perfect streak ends. Next, it's time to look at the state of North Carolina. Though North Carolina has largely voted Republican since Carter won the state in 1976, Obama did win the state in 2008, and the contests there have been relatively close since. Current polls show that 2020 won't be an exception, and currently show Joe Biden slightly ahead. However, the polls also show Trump is steadily rising while Biden has remained relatively steady. With that, and 538 is currently projecting a Trump victory in this state, I will give North Carolina's 15 electoral votes to Trump. Before moving on to the last 4 states, which I believe are the most interesting states to watch right now, I would like to address Nebraska and Maine's district-based electoral college apportionment system. These 2 states currently apportion their electors by giving 2 electoral college votes to whoever wins the state at large, and then choose the rest of the electors based on who wins each House of Representatives district. Despite this arguably more representative system of choosing electors, it normally does not impact campaigns and election outcomes since Nebraska is traditionally a solid Republican state and Maine is traditionally a solid Democratic state. However, in 2016, Trump won Maine's 2nd district, becoming the first Republican to do so since Bush Sr. won the state in 1988. Polling shows that Trump could once again win the 2nd district in 2020. Moreover, Nebraska's 2nd district has been shifting to the Democrats in the past few years, given suburbanites' increasing dislike of Trump. While this only represents 2 electoral college votes, they could make the difference in a tight contest. Currently, polling and forecasts show that Trump has a good chance of winning Maine's 2nd district, so I will fill it accordingly. There isn't much data for Nebraska's 2nd district, but the little data there is indicates Biden has a slight advantage, so I will fill it blue. Throughout this video, it has been apparent that Biden has an advantage over Trump. He has more safe electoral college votes, and many of the states that have filled in for Trump could easily be considered toss-ups where Biden could win, possibly indicating a landslide election. At this point, Biden only needs to win Florida to reach the magic number, and any other combination of 2 or more states will also result in a Biden victory. Conversely, this means that Trump absolutely needs to win Florida and Pennsylvania, along with any of the other 2 states to win. Additionally, the scenario where Biden wins Pennsylvania but Trump wins Arizona, Florida, and Minnesota could result in a tie. This is a topic that deserves a video of its own, but a tie in the Electoral College or any result where neither candidate gets 270 Electoral College votes due to third parties or faithless electors would mean that the election would be decided by the House of Representatives. In that situation, any change to Nebraska and Maine's 2nd districts could essentially decide the election. With all that said, let's get into who I actually think will win each of these states. First, Arizona. Arizona is a state that has been rapidly shifting to the Democratic Party in recent years, largely due to demographic changes. In fact, Arizona could go from having 2 Republican senators to 2 Democratic senators in a span of just 4 years, depending on the result of this year's Senate election. Biden currently has a decent lead in the polls, though still within the margin of error, and 538 still rates it as a toss-up. As such, I'll go with my gut feeling that Arizona will stay red in 2020. However, if Biden's lead remains as we get closer to Election Day, I will probably switch it to blue. For now, Arizona's 11 electoral votes will go to Trump. Second, let's look at Minnesota. Minnesota is interesting because though Hillary won the state there in 2016, it was actually a very close result where she won by a margin of less than 2%, meaning Trump was actually very close to adding the state to his collection of Midwestern upsets. The media does not talk about this often, but there have been some polls that show a close race in Minnesota recently, including the most recent one, which was conducted by the highly reputable Emerson College, which shows Biden with only a 2-point lead over Trump. However, at the end of the day, no poll shows Trump in the lead, and most give Biden a comfortable margin. So while it is a state where Trump could possibly try to make inroads, its 10 electoral college votes will go to Joe Biden. Third, let's look at the highly coveted state of Florida, which is also Trump's state of residence. Florida is also considered a bellwether state, which has only missed a national winner twice since 1928, 1992 being the last time it missed. Trump won the state in 2016 by a margin of about 1%. However, current polls give Biden a comfortable advantage, and his average currently stands around 50%, which is a very solid position. I will point out, however, that Trump has been steadily rising in the state, and we could see a much closer result than the current polls show. Nevertheless, as it stands currently, I give Florida, and consequently the 2020 presidential election, to Joe Biden. Lastly, we have one last state to color, Pennsylvania, which is Joe Biden's birthplace. It was perhaps Trump's most valuable upset win. In fact, when Pennsylvania turned red on election night 2016, it became clear that Hillary's widely expected victory may not materialize. However, current polls show that it is unlikely to happen again, as they show a similar situation to Florida, only slightly worse for Trump. Because of this, Pennsylvania's 20 electoral votes will go to Biden, and thus, the blue wall which was lost in 2016 will be rebuilt, except for Maine's 2nd district, that is. With that, I will close my 2020 election prediction video. I plan to make more of these videos if I see any large changes in the polls, as well as if there are any events or scandals that could change the outcome of the election. I will say, however, that even though Biden is currently ahead, Trump still has a very real chance of winning, though I can say with a high degree of confidence that if Trump is to win the 2020 election, it will once again be without winning the popular vote. Anyways, let me know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with my predictions, as well as any other topics you would like me to cover. I hope you enjoyed this video, and remember to like, share, and subscribe for more quality content.